On this episode, we talk with our good friend, Timothy David Miller, about inner healing prayer.
You're listening to the Dudes and Dads Podcast, a show dedicated to helping men be better dudes and dads by building community through meaningful conversation and storytelling. And now, here are your hosts, Joel DeMott and Andy Lane.
Andy.
Joel.
Andy, you're alive. Oh, you're alive.
It's been way
by golly.
Way too long.
Yeah, and a lot of things have happened. For those of you that have been staying up on the social medias, Andy, your family's been through some things.
We had the death of my grandpa,
and we are so sad about that, and we hope that everyone is doing well, or as best as can be expected.
We are doing pretty good for what it is.
For what it is, and so as you all know, real life does happen, and sometimes we have to adjust our recording schedule. So thanks for sticking with us as we've delayed. Andy and I and our spouses also, I'm not going to lie, we also did spend some time in sunny Florida.
We did, and it was beautiful.
It was delightful. And we did return, as always, to much colder conditions.
It's snowing tonight, Joel.
Good golly. It's okay. That's all right. Well, March, I did on the other podcast that I'm on, I got a little argument started with my co-hosts.
Oh, yeah?
Because I said North Central Indiana, March is the worst month, period. Worst month of the year.
Agree.
Because it's unpredictable. We had 68-degree weather the other day. It's now freezing outside and snowing. And everything smells like a wet dog outside. So...
And it goes from warm to cold and warm to cold, and it's just gross.
It's lousy. So, hey, welcome to the show, Dudes and Dads Podcast listeners. So good to have all of you along with us. And tonight we're going to have Timothy David Miller on. We're going to talk about inner healing prayer. We're going to go deep into the bowels.
Into the bowels?
Into the bowels of prayer. I've never heard that term used before.
I have not either, but I think I like it.
Okay, that's good.
So,
but before we go any further, we want to
thank our sponsors. We have Concrete Barber is the sponsor for this episode. ConcreteBarber.com. You can see all of his great. Instagram is great for him. He's got all of the great styles, and I really like the time lapse that he does of photos.
Yeah.
So
it's not only are you seeing the barber stuff go on, it's a multimedia experience. There's a high entertainment value there. So,
it is.
So DJ, keep up the good work over there.
ConcreteBarber.com. And
also, we want to thank our friends Everence for supporting this episode. Support comes from Everence Financial, helping members invest in what lasts through financial services with impact. More at everence.com/Michiana. Securities offered through Concourse Financial Group Securities Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC.
Well, Joel, I met a guest, our guest today.
Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and bring him on. But I met our guest when we were in Florida, in sunny Florida.
Yep.
So we want to welcome Timothy David Miller to our show. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Timothy.
Thank you.
Or Tim.
Good to be here.
It's okay to call you Tim. I mean...
Yeah, please call me Tim.
All right.
In Florida, people kept calling me Timothy, and it was surreal. It was a weird experience. It's the only time in my entire life where I was called Timothy.
That's amazing. I like calling you Timothy David Miller because it makes you sound like you might be an assassin.
I could do that.
Yeah. I'm sure. Absolutely. It's, the thing is, that's the great thing. No one would ever expect an Anabaptist to be an assassin. See, that's the good cover.
That's the key right there.
That's the key,
right.
The key cover.
Right.
Yes.
Or call your mom when your mom calls you that because you're in trouble. Like that's the full name comes out.
So
truthfully, I've never even been hunting. So
okay.
I would struggle with if my job was to slap somebody, I'd be like, this is going to be rough.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'd make a great assassin.
Well, yeah. What is the protocol here for a good slap? So on the topic of slapping, great segue. Uh, Tim is the for those of you that don't know Tim, and that could be many of you. Tim is the lead pastor at Gateway Fellowship in Bridgeville, Delaware. Are there a lot of bridges in Bridgeville? Was it named after? Is there the multiple bridges that really? Yeah, what's that all
There's
about?
not even one.
That's false advertising. False
I don't
advertising.
think there's even one bridge.
Fantastic. So Tim, you've been over in Bridgeville, Delaware, over there since 2008. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a spell.
That's a long time.
It's a while. I'm no math genius here, but that's going on 14 years, if I'm not mistaken. Andy, does my math add up? Is that right? I think so.
Math is not my strong suit, but I'm going to go ahead and say yes.
14 years. Tim, let me just put this out there. I've never done any job for 14 years. Not one single job have I stayed at an employer for 14 years. What's your secret? That's what I want to know. Tell us the secret of a 14-year tenure at one church.
Well, before I began, when I graduated seminary and was praying and looking at all the horrible job openings online for pastors, going into a deep depression.
Yes, right.
Reading descriptions of what people expected of their pastors, what they wanted in a pastor. And I just remember saying, death would be superior to taking any of these jobs. And
I'm laughing because it's true.
Yeah.
So I think, just for instance, and tell me if you're tracking with this, Tim. If you just go to, what is it? Church? What is it? What's the big website? I'm forgetting.
Churchjobs.net or something.
Church jobs, ministry jobs. Whatever it is. There's like a few main websites that people go to find ministry jobs. And it's a swamp out there, folks. It's an absolute swamp. And you're looking at these job descriptions and you're like, I don't know if Jesus Christ himself could fulfill this job description.
That's right. Yeah. They want the education, work ethic, the salary, everything felt like, okay, so I feel despair.com would be like when am I looking at despair.com?
Yep.
But, so I got this word from the Lord during that season where he said, Tim, it's not about the internet. It's all about the network. And I said, I have no idea what that means. So thanks for the riddle. That's very unhelpful. And my uncle called me and said, Tim, have you had any luck in this? Because that's what you really want if you're a theist, a lot of luck. Have you had any luck in this job search thing? And I said, no, everything looks horrible. And, but the Lord did tell me it's not about the internet. It's all about the network. And he said, oh, that's wonderful. And I said, it is. And he said, yeah, that means you're supposed to come, interview with us, the conservative Mennonite church that you grew up in. And I said, huh? Why? And he said, because of what the Lord said about the network. And I was like, oh, no, that wouldn't work. That would never work. Too many inconsistencies, incompatibilities with me and them. And he said, well, just promise me you will. So I did. And I've been there ever since. But one of the things that I asked God before I started, I noticed that I thought I saw a pattern in some of my heroes' lives. And the pattern was that to make an impact, they stayed in one place for a long time. So I said, God, this is a preference, not a demand, but I'd like to spend my entire career in one church. Yeah. So far, I'm still here.
Yeah.
And they haven't fired me.
Yep.
I've tried multiple times, and it hasn't worked. We have planted at least 2, maybe 3 churches that
Accidentally.
yeah. And I love that. I love Gateway Fellowship. We love Gateway Fellowship. My wife and I treasure this little church. We're probably one of the slowest growing churches in America. And, you know, at the rate of -12 a year-ish for 14 years. But, man, fantastic batch of people. Sometimes I feel like a regular sized person at our church. And then I go other places and people act like I'm something special. And I go, huh?
Right. Yep.
At home, I'm not that prophetic, but here people seem to think I am. Or at home, I don't feel that deep, but here people seem to think I said something smart.
Well, that was
You know what I mean?
that was my experience. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, and this is, and I'm speaking also as a pastor, and you know, and Andy's married to one now, whether he likes it or not, and and
What happened? I don't understand that reference.
oh, I'm sorry. So Andy's wife, Julie,
kind of fell into the, well, I don't want to say fell into
no,
it.
let's just be clear.
Okay, sure.
I quit my job here at Clinton Frame, and she moved into my office. I just wanted to be kidding. That's
No, she did the interim job of
Yep.
what Joel was doing, and
Yep.
then the pastor of pastoral care, which is now called congregational care,
pastor of
came
congregation.
open, and so she got that job. So she is the pastor. But
So-
2 years ago, she would have never
Yeah.
dreamed of that.
Yeah, Julie was on a different. She was definitely on a kind of ministry track, but definitely not in the kind of the typical pastoral ministry track. But here she is today, and so Andy is a pastor's spouse, and there's a learning curve to that.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
Are
to
the
say.
expectations crushing and overwhelming to you, Andy?
you know, nah, I'm good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a good honest, mostly honest response. No, I think, you know, so as you.
By the way, Julia's watching, and she says that it's accurate.
That's accurate.
That is totally accurate. So
Oh, good.
Which one is accurate?
Yeah,
which one?
which-
right back.
I love that your wife is live with us. That's fantastic. No, I think now I got my train of thought. Oh, right. This is what I was going to say. Finding a way to be a normal person in a congregational setting as a pastor is like a sacred skill and a really unique gift. I feel like where I'm at right now, one of the greatest gifts that I have received is that I have legitimate friends. And that's not to say that my previous congregation, but there is a kind of friendship that has emerged. And if I can say this, I had a pastor, a lead pastor at another church once tell me, like, your congregation doesn't want to be friends with you. Like,
What?
I don't want to do that. You know, they need a pastor, not a friend. And I've always lived in that tension of like, I don't know if that's right.
That's broken, dude.
Yeah,
It's not right.
Right. And it's like, because I think you're assuming a power dynamic, and you're assuming, and it's like, can't I just live out of my calling? They live out of theirs. We do this thing called Christian community together, and that's okay. And I don't have to be like, I'm not the sage on the stage. I'm just like a co-laborer with you.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. Julie's clarifying.
Yes.
That it's true that she fell into ministry.
Fell into it. Gosh. If that's all I can say, Julie, if that's falling into ministry, Wow. What that's a graceful fall. I'll just tell you. That's really beautiful. By the way, Andy, I got to say this beaming new technology that
like
you
that?
are integrating into our video components here is wow. Well,
The
all
graphic.
I can say is thank you, Everence, and thank you, DJ.
Yeah.
all this fancy new stuff. So, okay, so you've
Can
been
I just
go ahead.
can I
Sorry,
speak back into
please.
what you were just
Yep.
talking about? So,
Yeah.
I I think it's really normal for a lot of pastors to claim that have you ever heard this phrase? It's lonely at the top.
Oh yes, 100%. Yep.
I'm not lonely. And I wonder if maybe the part of the reason I'm not lonely is because I'm such a mess in front of my people.
Golly,
So
yeah. Yes.
so here's one example.
Let's dig more into that.
Yeah.
Here's a recent example. My mentor, my overseer, died of pancreatic cancer last year.
Oh.
Or maybe it was a year and a half, 2 years ago now. Time just flies. And he was so beloved by so many people that I was unintentionally minimizing my own suffering.
Sure.
We went from talking on the phone 3 times a week at least
Yes.
to not at all.
Yeah.
And
right.
My buddy Stanley one day says, "How you doing, Tim?" I said, "I'm okay." He goes, "How you doing with Richard?" And I said, "It's rough, but a lot of people knew him more than me, longer than me, so I'm all right."
Yep.
And he goes,
Classic minimizing right there. Yep.
"Totally."
Yep.
And Stanley says, "I'm angry with you." I said, "What?" He goes, "How are you doing?" I said, "I'm okay." And he goes, "I'm getting mad at you right now. I'm getting angry with you. Sit down sit down right here, right now. Sit down. I sit down. Then Carolyn Biggs comes over, the lady who runs our clothing ministry, giving away clothing to the poor and praying over people. And Stan's the leader of the prayer, leads prayer meeting. And he's my blind buddy who I just asked me the story of how I took him to the ocean. Okay. And they made me talk about how I was doing. They validated my pain to the point where I was crying, finally crying, really crying hard. And they went and got me communion and served me communion and laid hands on me and prayed over me. And the three of us had a moment because they refused to let me hide in my grief.
Oh, so good.
Beautiful.
So
you guys good. I just don't I hardly have words for how I feel about these people.
Yep.
They pastor me.
Yep.
They inspire me. They rebuke me. They challenge me.
Yeah.
So and I'm not lonely, and it's not because I never feel lonely. It's because they come after me when I try to go and be alone.
Because they're unimpressed with you.
Well, that's true,
right? But not in a bad way. So Tim, here's the thought that I okay. So at Walk EMC, where I serve, the team that I oversee, a kind of a, when I say requirement, it's not a hard-handed thing, but I want everyone to have a 4 to 5 person prayer shield that is outside of our congregation, that they're regularly men and women of prayer, deep abiding prayer, that are going to be lifting them up in their ministry, in their personal lives, the whole thing, right? And that there's a high degree of transparency and honesty with that group, this prayer shield group. And then I also want them to have a spiritual mentor of some sort, like someone they can have deep, meaningful Jesus conversations with, that again is outside of the congregation. So someone that does not have a dog in the hunt of their ministry job, kind of thing, right? But then I also say that the one helpful thing that people seem to get when I say it is, for this spiritual mentor position, you need to find someone that is unimpressed with you. specifically, what I mean is this: so many people will lift you up in unfair and not helpful ways.
They put you on a pedestal,
Right.
And
Being in ministry, and it will feel okay at first, but then you realize it's toxic and it's dangerous, and it's people lifting you up that actually causes the loneliness. And so what I want is a bunch of co-laborers where everyone is living into their gifting, and there isn't this like this, I don't know, the freaking smoke and light show kind of thing.
Right.
That's going on around it, where we're elevating personalities. Because, by the way, Tim, you and I and Andy, we've seen what has happened in the last few years with these high capacity people that are elevated
that end up falling to pieces because they can't live on the pedestal that people are putting them in.
100%. So, Tim, I'm super grateful for all those wonderful people out in Delaware that you are hanging out with, and I hope I get to meet them. I really do.
They're solid. They're solid.
That is awesome.
I was talking to Wes. Wes Furlong the other day.
Yep.
And he said that when he was leading a rather large church, there was this little 80-person Baptist church, and they would, they would do sort of a bunch of churches would come together to do community events, and this little 80-person church would outserve their 1,500-person church. And I came home and reported to my wife. I was like, oh, that boosted me so much, because some of us pastors of small churches really do suffer from the comparison. Comparison is just such a joy thief, and useless as an individual, but also useless in terms of leadership, right? Don't compare the size of your congregation to other congregations and then not see the treasure that's in front of you, or, these weird, unhelpful, not from God metrics of success.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to the thing you said about fans. Well, you didn't use the word fan, but critics and fans. Critics want to. I've always said, don't put me up on a pedestal, because there's two reasons that somebody would want to put me on a pedestal, and I'm not interested in either. And the two reasons would be to either crown me king or crucify me. So no, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
Neither of those.
I'm out.
Right.
No thanks.
Hard pass. Okay, so Tim, I think we get a little bit of a taste for the kind of maybe the spirit of ministry that you have found to be life-giving and helpful, and something that you can stick around in, and that you're not trying to flee from like a burning building, which many of our colleagues, Tim, obviously are. Like, this whole great resignation and pastors leaving their ministries and not going back to ministry at all, and kind of thing that is happening at a considerable rate.
It seems like more these days than ever before.
Sure, and it's concerning. But I think some of the things that Tim's touching on are probably contributing to that. Here's the other thing. So, Tim, and for our listeners here, when we were down in Florida at Flourishing, which is our Evangelical Anabaptist Network pastor spouse retreat, and there were just shy of like 150 folks on down there in beautiful
Sarasota
area. Oh, golly.
In the Majesty Room.
In the Majesty
with columns, lots of columns.
Golly, there was a real emerging aesthetic there, wasn't there?
Turn left on Glory Road.
The Shekinah room. Like, for those of people that are listening that are church folks, this language you will recognize.
Yeah, you'll get that right away.
We walked into Miracle. I'm sorry, I bumped my mic. Yeah, we went down Glory Road, walked into Miracle Manor.
Yes.
Passed down Shekinah Boulevard and into the Majesty Room. I'm probably messing up those details. It was actually more hilarious than that.
Yes.
Well, I would say that I really introduced me, especially into like the inner healing prayer idea. So can you tell us a little bit about what that is and why is that so important to you? Yeah.
And like, how did you get connected with this? Because like, I'm guessing maybe you had an experience with it. something
Yeah.
happened, something broke
Yes.
loose in you. I don't know.
I like the, well, something happened. Um, a really close friend of mine went to a sister church in our region and had a traumatic childhood experience that through listening prayer, the Lord substantially transformed the narrative that she had been living under as an abuse victim, and worked some powerful Holy Spirit healing, gospel healing. And she enlisted and went through the training and became a practitioner of that particular model of inner healing prayer, and began to sort of, one night we were chatting on Facebook Messenger, and she just said, "Hey, why don't you ask Jesus to give you a picture of what your pain looks like?" And I asked the Lord to give me a picture of my pain, and I was wearing this heavy backpack. And I said, "Wow, I'm wearing a heavy backpack." So she types back a little later, the little bubble you can see somebody's typing, and it pops up. Ask him what's in the backpack. I'm like, "Oh, it's full of bricks." Ask him what the bricks are. He says they are church people's expectations. Oh, well, ask him what he wants you to do with those. He says he wants me to take the backpack off and surrender it to him. Okay, well, tell me when you've done that. Well, I tried in my imagination. I tried to take the backpack off, couldn't take it off. Finally, I was like, "Why can't I take this off, Lord?" And he said, "Because you believe that if you don't live with a certain measure of guilt for how you aren't meeting people's expectations, then that lack of guilt reveals that you don't really love them."
Oh,
And I was like, "That's messed up." And he's like, "Yep." I couldn't get the backpack off until I physically got out of my lazy boy and pretended to take off the invisible backpack with my actual, body, and set it at the ground, on the ground in front of me, and then sat back down. I texted my friend, "Okay, I got it off finally." So she texts back, "Ask him what he wants to give you in exchange now that you've surrendered that burden to the Lord." And I said, "All right, what do you want to give me in exchange?" So I look, and there's what I think is the same dang backpack. And I'm like, "Oh no, this is a test. No way, never again." And I probably told you this story down in Florida. And so I finally realized it's not a joke. It's not a test. And I pick it up, and it feels empty. So I put it on, and it's like, this is like, wow. It's like it's no burden at all. And she says, "What's in it?" My friend texts me, "What's in the backpack?" So I open it up and look in there, a sandwich. And I say, "What's this, Lord?" And he says, "It's your lunch." And instantly I'm in the story of the loaves and fishes, where the only responsibility I have is to listen to Jesus and his what he's saying to me, what he's giving me to feast on from myself, from him and me, is plenty to share with everyone around me. And there will be, the 12 baskets and food for the 5,000. And so it was like a redefining of love. So that little encounter is one of a number of those kind of prayer encounters in which I sort of slowly began to pick up tools.
Sure.
That it's like, okay, that's the tool called picture the burden, and invite Jesus in and give the burden to Jesus. And what do you want me to do with this? And so you probably saw us do that. The exchange is what I call it.
Yeah. And I just, so because we have a wide range of listeners, some of which right now as they're listening are going, "Hey, who invited this freak show onto the show?" And I say that I'm joking, obviously, but
My feelings were not hurt.
good.
The harshest criticism you could ever give someone is that they're normal.
Yeah. Yeah. The most damaging thing I could ever say to someone would be that. No, and I mean I'm joking to that extent, but also to say, see, here's the deal, Tim, and you know this, like the way you're talking about your conversation with God right there, like that whole exchange, is it fair to say that that is really a foreign, like I'm thinking of we Christians in the West in particular, I'm thinking of the folks that I've shared life with in congregations, the kind of conversation that you're just talking about there, the nature, the dynamics of it, all of that, the process seems massively foreign to what I have encountered and have talked about and have seen and experienced, even with myself, within kind of Christian congregations in general. Is that fair?
People oftentimes have not received proper training in what prayer can be.
Mm-hmm.
Prayer is often, we almost treat prayer like it's God's voicemail,
Mm-hmm.
rather than a real live conversation with a real being who exists and who is present with us. And honestly, someone who doesn't buy any of our posturing and isn't interested in us saying what we think he wants us to say. It's almost a foreign idea. Okay, so let me share this example. One day, I was a very young believer. I was headed out to go to a 6-month trip to India with REACH, the short-term missions program of our denomination. And Mom and Dad were praying over me the night before we left. And my dad didn't close his eyes when he prayed. He didn't use a preacher voice. He didn't get intense. There wasn't zeal in his voice. There was not intensity. He wasn't attempting to get God's wind. Father God, we ask that you, hey, we just don't know how you're going to do it, Lord. But he wasn't, if you talk to the guy who does the cattle auction,
Yes. Yeah.
That's a persona he puts on for cattle auction. And there's a persona a lot of us put on when we pray.
Yeah.
There's a persona people put on when they go out in public.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a very young Christian. I had already learned how to put on a persona with God. And then my dad started praying. He didn't shut his eyes. He didn't change his voice. He didn't use any particularly spiritual sounding words. It was so arresting and shocking to me that I stood there and just looked at him while he prayed with confusion on my face.
Because what he's doing does not count right now. It does not count as prayer. And I thought,
Right.
Dad, I thought you cared about
I thought
me.
this is different, not just a conversation.
Yeah.
He's just talking like God's a regular person,
Mm-hmm.
the same size as us in the circle, who didn't need to be convinced of anything or impressed. The lack of legalism and the amount of grace, and Dad doesn't know that his prayer taught me anything. I don't think I've ever said this to him. But someone who really understands grace, who isn't doing any posturing with God, it changes how you get up in the morning. It changes how you behave when you realize you've sinned.
Mm-hmm.
It changes how you sing to the Lord. It changes how you talk to the Lord. It changes how you feel as you open the book to just read the word. Yeah. So conversational relationship's not going to be possible.
Sure.
If you think of yourself as a problem God's trying to fix, rather than someone who God really enjoys and loves and understands all those weaknesses that you have, but really likes you.
I don't know. I have I don't know if this is a strange spiritual anxiety around, how would I say this? If I have I think so many folks, and I would include myself in this at various seasons, so many folks are locked up with their, it's like they're worried about doing it wrong, prayer that is, or whatever. They're worried about the doing of it. And because they're so worried about that, then they don't, or they don't even, because like in a way, and honestly in a way, Tim, like what I heard you share down in Florida as we were at the conference, and the previous conversations that you and I have had, there is a little bit of a, if I'll just say it, there's an experimental nature to to your conversations with God. Like,
Yeah.
is that,
Yeah.
maybe you've got better words for it than that, but
I'm a mystic.
yeah,
Am I supposed to unpack that?
I think so. I think so.
I think too, like, I mean, one thing that I noticed when we were in Florida is I think the way that you led the conversations on stage, the way that you were, I don't want to say were the voice of God, but you were allowing the people that were going through the inner healing prayer to just, you were kind of guiding them, if you will. And I think
They don't need to hear from me.
Right.
Yeah, they don't
They're
need to hear from me.
You're just asking them basic questions.
Exactly. The point of I don't really like to call it inner healing prayer, because to me it's just Christianity.
Sure.
It's
right.
just,
Yeah, says who?
it's just Jesus. It's the real Jesus. The biblical Jesus is actually here. He speaks, he saves, he heals, his spirit brings life. He actually works really well in broken situations just like this one.
Yep.
And if we'll attune our hearts and ask him these questions and invite him in, he'll speak.
Mm-hmm.
He'll do the stuff he did in the book because he hasn't changed and he hasn't gone away.
Yeah. So Tim, as succinctly, and I this is always the challenge, right? As succinctly as you can, give us, because I want people to get a little context for the bigger picture that we're talking about, kind of, because you did outline some specific steps kind of in the healing prayer process. If you could just lay those out for us kind of quickly, and then just to, because it was a process. There's a journey that a person goes on through this, and the journey is not the same for every person, and sometimes there's a start, a stop, a pause, and then a continuation. But in general, kind of the things that you're hoping to guide people through, how would you list those out?
Well, let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In reality, it comes down to Jesus said that the truth will make us free, right? And we need to know that there's a difference between the facts, which the devil is really good at twisting the facts in order to deceive. There's a difference between the facts, which can be twisted to deceive, and the truth, which can even use made up stories called parables to set free. Right? So the truth is actually not just an idea. Jesus said, I am the truth. So the truth is a person. The truth is the voice of Jesus. The truth is what Jesus is saying, or another way to put it would be what God believes, right? So oftentimes where we start with people is life hurts us, life wounds us, we sin, and then those experiences start to teach us things. So through the wounds of life, lies enter, and the demonic will often try to empower those lies that our broken experience of the world. So what ends up happening is things that are not true begin to feel true. And then as we feel those things are true, we live by those things that we feel are true but aren't. And that is what keeps us under strongholds, is how the New Testament describes it. And so Paul talks about taking every thought captive to the obedience of Christ and destroying strongholds using the tools of the spiritual weapons of the gospel. So that's what I'm doing here. I think maybe a more manly description of inner healing prayer would be spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
This is spiritual war. This is taking ground. This is there's a story in the Old Testament where there's this guy called, what is his name? Where he takes his stand in a field of lentils and like kills 300 men. And like, I just picture him standing there. His name is Shema. Shema took his stand in a field of lentils, and I just picture him standing there saying, they're my stinking lentils.
Yeah.
This is my inheritance. I was promised this. This is my children's food, right? This is God's given me this. And I'm not going to let Satan and I'm not going to let the evil one take my inheritance from the Lord, right? And so for us, it's like we've been given the promise to live an abundant life. We've been promised we're not slaves to sin. We're not slaves to sin anymore. We're not. We can walk in freedom. We don't have to be ruled by anger. We don't have to be ruled by lust. We don't have to be ruled by greed, right?
Right.
So in my mind, like, the evil one wants to lock us up so that we don't live the abundant life of that's ours in Jesus. He wants to steal our inheritance. He's really into identity theft. He wants to steal our ID out of our wallet so we don't know who we are. Because if we don't know who we are, then we definitely don't know whose we are, and we have no clue why we're here or what to do. I'm not even describing the inner healing process at this point, but basically the truth sets us free, and lies make us slaves. So what I do is I try to walk people into the wound with Jesus to allow him to heal the wound, remove the arrow with the lie in it, repent of what they need to repent of, experience comfort where they need to comfort, forgive who they need to forgive, and then go circle back around. And usually we start with a lie, but we end with the truth. And by the time you go through the process, people who think they don't hear God at all, I'm telling you, people who think they don't hear God, people who think, oh, I'm a dud, I'm a waste of Tim's time. By the end, they're not only hearing God, they're feeling God, they're sensing God, and the enemy's lies are unmasked.
Well, and that's one of the things I would say that we experienced when we were in Florida. And normally you do this in a small setting. You may have one other, person with you besides the person that you're walking through this with. But we were allowed to be kind of, the audience, where there was, past the fourth wall, and we were allowed to see through this. And like, I noticed that in both cases, it seemed like, by the end of this journey, people were experiencing and feeling and just hearing from God where I don't think that they really expected when they got on stage.
Yeah. And could you tell how clueless and powerless I was the whole time?
Yeah.
What I experienced is you listening to God, though. Like, that's what I experienced.
Desperately listening. I'm not even joking when I say my method of doing this is throwing myself in harm's way and begging God to rescue everyone.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. But that's like, well, that's shepherding, number one.
We're in way over our head. That's what Paul said, right?
Boy, oh boy, right? And Tim, I'm reading this book right now that just came out. I think this is fall, this past fall. Let's see, it's the title of it is The Flourishing Pastor, and the early chapters he's basically all about saying like, you need. He's getting toward the place of you need to be in harm's way. Like, you need to be in harm's way in terms of relinquishing safety and control. And if you do that, that's where longevity and healing is found. And then as I'm listening to, because I can't read everything like from a book, so Audible has been a real big help to me recently.
Are you the person who's telling me I've got to get Audible?
Well, here's the deal. I'm just going to say this. When I finished grad school, and maybe you're not, I've projected realities onto you, Tim. So I'm just going to tell you what I think you're like, and then you're just going to tell me I don't know that I'm totally wrong. I look at you, I see you, I'm like, oh, there's a deep reader. There's a guy who's just deep into the spiritual formation, the books and all the things. I don't know. For me, when I graduated from grad school, when I finished my last graduate class and had a wall full of walls full of books. I said, I'm going to take some time off. I'm going to take some time off from this whole reading thing. And then I took a very long time off. And I have felt like in the last few years, have just tried to crawl back into being a better a reader or whatever. And then
I'm sorry, I forgot to mute my mic.
no,
That's
you're,
all right.
you're
You're good.
You're fine. It's hey, listen, we know you're trying to we know you're trying to quit, so it's fine. It's fine.
Oh, I this flu, man.
So yeah, so I've been trying to get back to reading. What I've realized is if I get a book and then get the this is not a super cost effective way, but if I get the book and then get the Audible, I can listen to some of it and then I can pick it up and read when I have a chance to, but I have to have both to be able to get through a book. Because I'll get stalled out. Because I'm always like, oh, I need like a quiet place to read all the time, and like that's not a reality in my life. And so
Right. You're never going to get the quiet place.
And I'm our family's Uber driver, for crying out loud. So I'm in the car all the time. So I'm just using my resources to get books, but I'm trying to get back in. And I will say, the reading thing is actually good for you. Turns out. So I have just so many other questions. I think what we can say about the nature of this prayer is, and because again, we are the Dudes and Dads podcast, and we're always talking about guy stuff and whatever. And here's the deal. I think a lot of, I don't know, when it comes to entering into, and I know this is a terrible stereotype with
Can
guys.
we backtrack and
Yes,
talk
please,
about
go ahead.
reading just for a smidge more?
Yeah, sure, you can. Yes, go for it.
I'm a very slow reader.
Okay.
Like I read very slowly. I reread the same books over and over. And many of the books I read are old.
Yes.
And I'm not really interested in growing my library real big. I would be. I was just thinking the other week, I should get rid of a bunch of these worthless books. Probably there's less than 20 books that I have that were worth reading. Dallas Willard is helpful. A little book I bought for $0.25 by Brother Lawrence and Frank Laubach on living in a state of constant conversation with God, experiencing the presence of God all day, has probably been one of the most impactful things that I have read and reread and continue to endorse. A little book called Grace Walk that nobody's ever heard of except for me. That book set me free of porn.
Mm-hmm.
I think books about porn don't help porn.
Yeah.
I think books about grace and Jesus, because you don't fighting sin is a short-term strategy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was it the gospel of sin management, as Willard often called it?
Well, okay,
Yeah.
and that's not true. I was never addicted to porn as a Christian, but my struggle with lust was dramatically helped by understanding that I'm under grace.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Actually, never. So that's a long topic. My throat's starting to fail me, guys.
Okay.
Okay.
We can wrap it up here soon.
So,
but my point is, I'm actually, not only am I not a super reader, but I really ascribe to the idea of the purpose of reading is doing. is applying.
Yep.
And so it is a tree of a knowledge of good and evil kind of an agenda to to try to constantly be gaining more and more knowledge. There's a Eastern Orthodox concept of never study or read more hours in the day than you pray.
Well, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a dangerous idea.
I ascribe to that. I
yeah.
affirm that.
No, yeah. I'm with you. That's a good challenge. I'm gonna have to think about that.
I don't know. I just have pastor friends, and they're like, "This year I'm going to read 50 books," and I'm like, "You're going to live one page out of what?
Yeah.
How many of those books are you going to live? Going to live out? You know, like when Jesus said to Dan Mohler, "Stay in Philippians 2," and then he stayed in Philippians 2, and then he said, "How long am I going to stay in Philippians 2? Only reading Philippians 2. Have this mind in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, that though he was in the form of God, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but took on the nature of a servant, being found in human likeness. He humbled himself to the point of death, even death on a cross. So God exalted him to the highest place." Right? But have this mind in you. Have that mind in you. Have that attitude in you. How long am I going to stay in Philippians 2, Lord? And he says, till it's in you, till you're living it. And one day, Jesus said, "Okay, you can move on." Do you know what that means? That means he was actually living Philippians 2.
Yeah.
And until he was living it, Jesus didn't want him just filling more knowledge way beyond his level of actual spiritual growth.
Yeah.
Right? Because this extra gap in between the grace we're actually walking in and the word, this gap right here, now this information is being used to judge self, God, and others. Like that's danger. There's danger there.
Absolutely. Wow.
So
yeah, think on that. That's worth the price of admission right there. Think on that one. Yeah, and I think that's, we've made, for those of us that follow Jesus in the Western context, I do feel it's become this big, like I'm all for education, don't get me wrong, but this big cerebral exercise. And it's like, yeah, information does not equal transformation. I've experienced that in my own life, see it in the lives of others. And I just go, how about we just be obedient? How about we just start there? And then,
yeah. And how do you be obedient to ideas like God is love?
Yeah. Well,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like every day, this is how I start my prayer day. I don't ask God for, oops, I'm sorry, again, touch that. I don't ask God for things in my prayer time in the morning. There's no lists. I'm not looking at the brokenness of the world. I'm not looking at the needs of my community. I'm not even looking at the needs in myself or my family. The first lengthy portion of my prayer time is thanking Jesus that I deserve hell and I'm never going.
Yeah.
I was going to hell.
Yeah.
I deserved it. The penalty, the appropriate penalty for the behaviors that I was enslaved to is death. And I was headed there, and he said no. And he came on a rescue mission. So I just say, thank you, God, that I was headed that way.
Yep.
I was headed to hell forever, and I'm not going. I'm going to heaven forever. Thank you that you loved me. Thank you that you pursued me. Thank you that I'm going to be with you forever. Thank you, God, that you took the cross for me, that you took the crown of thorns for Tim, that you were beaten for Tim. And I just stay in thank you that, thank you that, thank you that, thank you that, starting with the eternal things. And then that can grow into, and God, I ask for this, and God, I ask for that. But I mean, then I read a chapter out loud of something. And then I sit down and I picture Jesus with me, and then I do listening prayer. And that's my pattern. And I try not to interact with humans until noon. But I have the luxury of doing that because I'm in charge of how I arrange my schedule.
Right.
A lot of people's jobs would not allow that. That's why people are like, I get up at 4 a.m. and I'm like, wow, that's dangerous. Me and Jesus are actually asleep then. So I don't know who you're talking to.
I don't know.
Because he's in bed with me sleeping. I don't know
That's right.
how. It's not safe to get up before the Lord, bro. Like,
Yeah, that's a
where
dangerous
false
time.
doctrine's born. He didn't have the Lord there. He was in bed with me.
Yes.
Oh
Yes.
man. Well, this conversation's been good, Joel, and I don't want to keep Tim too long because I don't want his voice to
Tim, you
go bad.
got Tim, do you got to preach on Sunday?
That's the rumor. Actually, the part of the reason my voice is so jacked up is I just came out of band practice and I was singing really high.
I mean, I can see you bringing a little Bon Jovi to the worship experience.
I was trying to teach Danny Danny's the gal. I was trying to teach Danny the harmony parts, and I'm singing "I'll Help You in Here." Yeah.
Well,
We didn't cover any of your questions, and I didn't even get to ask you guys my questions. Like I was going to ask y'all, what's your favorite food?
Oh, nice.
he could do the pop quiz on us.
That's actually
Let's do that. We're gonna do that. Okay.
We're gonna finish the episode out where you get to ask us
so,
the questions.
all right.
Now it's time for Dudes and Dads Pop Quiz.
All right. So you're gonna go ahead and ask us these questions today.
Yeah.
So whatever you want to ask.
All right, favorite foods.
All right, I will go first. I will go with shrimp and Skittles. I know that's weird, but shrimp and Skittles.
Okay. Here's the thing. I've just turned a corner here recently. Gosh, Andy, you and I, it's got a brain lock. Shrimp and grits. Dude, I had some shrimp and grits the other day. It was dynamite, and I'm like, I think I really love this food. And because I'm not a Southerner, I didn't know about it. It's like a new kingdom, a new element of the kingdom of God is opened up before me. So I'm gonna go right now, this moment, shrimp and grits.
I think you guys need to move to Georgia or Alabama.
Yes.
If shrimp and grits is a thing that you are about.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I'm allergic to shrimp and I'm allergic to the lime Skittles. So you can have it, Andy.
Oh man, thanks.
Favorite TV show?
Joel, I'll let you answer that one first.
TV show. And this can be anything of all time, whatever.
All time.
Oh gosh.
How about series? Does that make you feel happy?
Okay, I'll tell you what my favorite series.
Yours? Okay.
It went 2 seasons. I wish to goodness it would go a third. There's been a lot of talk about it. Is the Netflix series Mindhunter, and it is the early. It's a kind of a slightly fictionalized version of when the FBI began their.
I'm writing it down.
Yeah, Mindhunter. When the FBI began their study into serial killers and began a process for profiling serial killers. And
Gross.
I know it sounds super dark. It's not as dark as it's all of the psychology that's really interesting to me. Anyway.
All right. So for me, I'm going to go with The Amazing Race. That's one of our family's favorites. We love watching
Quite the range between Mindhunter and Amazing Race. Yeah. I like it.
What if you could combine those two?
Yeah.
That's horrible. Okay. Favorite band?
Wait, hold on. Joel, your wife says this. Always with the shows with people dying. Oh.
Thank you, Jackie.
Oh, man. The shows with people dying. I love this new technology we got going on here.
So great. Our wives get to make a comment. Okay. Favorite band?
Oh.
That's what I asked. Yeah. Favorite band.
That's so hard for me. There's so many.
It's not hard for me.
It's hard for me. Joel, go ahead.
So hold on. So I asked the mailman, what's the greatest band of all time? And because everybody asked the mailman, hot enough for you? And then he just wants to die.
Yes.
Right.
No. So I try to ask him real questions. And I even get other people to give me questions for the mailman. And I have a list on my phone of so if I see him coming, I'm like, hey, here's your question of the day. Greatest sports team of all time. He's like 1920, what is it? 1927 Yankees or whatever. I don't know what he said. He said Aerosmith was the greatest band of all time. Anyway.
No.
How about y'all answer that question?
Joel.
Okay, I don't know about my favorite. I'll just answer the question. initially, my favorite band is the Chicago-based band Wilco. That's my
Wilco.
Jeff Tweedy is he's like a personal. I feel like I know him, and yet I don't. There's something about him. Just something about him.
All right, so I'm
favorite is not the same as greatest, huh?
No, because I don't know how, like I'm also like a huge in so many ways for the musicality level, also like a huge Led Zeppelin fan. But like it's like that's an easy one to go to, like whatever the epicness or whatever, and then but I just don't know. I don't know if I can. That's a hard one. That's a really hard.
It is
one.
a hard question, Andy.
All right, so it's so hard for me to even answer because I like music from all genres. I'm just gonna say the Smashing Pumpkins.
Ooh,
because that's a good one.
You the man. Oh, come on. The Siamese Dream album.
That's a good one.
It's
yes.
1994.
Yes.
I'm on like a Greyhound bus.
I love all the things about this story.
My friend hands me his Sony Walkman. It has a cassette in it. He says, "Listen to this." I put it on and I hear Cherub Rock, the first track of Siamese Dream.
I'm gonna have to.
And
go
I
listen to
sat
it now.
there,
I'm gonna have to.
and
go
I
listen.
sat there like,
Joel does not
What?
like the Smashing Pumpkins, according to his wife.
Oh, yeah.
well, listen, everyone is entitled to be as big of
Wrong.
an idiot
Right.
Right.
as America. That's what makes America.
Yep. Sure.
The best part of America is I get to be a religious kook and you get to be a wacko.
Yep. That's
Right?
true.
The earth is flat. 5G has given me an increased pancreatic pain level lately when it rains. And we are actually still friends.
All right, give us one more question and then we'll end this episode.
If you could live anywhere in the world doing any career you wanted, where would you
Ooh.
live and what would your career be?
All right, I'm gonna say I would probably live somewhere warm, so maybe Hawaii. Like if money wasn't an option, I would say Hawaii. And I really like podcasting, so I think I would actually do podcasting. Joel?
If I could live, yeah, Andy, I'm gonna say if I could live in San Diego, and I just, like have a job where I get to talk to people, just talk to people for my job. If that's podcasting or whatever it is, I think I would like that. I think I've crossed over the line now where it's like, you know what, I'm okay with a single climate and and living in that. And quite honestly, Tim, I don't know, you in Delaware, I think you've got it worse than us at some point. So I don't know how you do what you do, but
What do you mean?
I just envision like East Coast people, like up that way, like you getting some really gnarly weather. Am I wrong, or are you mild?
Delaware is mild year round. I
Really?
spend as many days at the beach as I can in the summer. Winters are mild. Fall's beautiful. Spring is beautiful. I would like to live closer to the beach. And I think it would be, what would I want to do as a job? I think I like what I'm doing, to be honest.
Yeah,
I like what I'm doing now.
yeah.
More of what I'm doing now. I would be better at this.
Yeah. I want to be
Like
closer
way
to the
better
beach.
at what I'm. Yeah,
Yeah, closer to the beach and better at what I'm doing.
like a way better version of me.
Lord help us.
And surf. I would love to surf.
Can you surf in Delaware? Is that a thing?
Nah, the waves aren't. I mean, people do. They're like, oh, yeah. My dentist was like, you can go down to Towers Beach and surf, because I used to be a lifeguard back when I was a kid, and that's where we could. The waves were still there. They replenished the beaches because of all the expensive houses, so the federal government provides money to replenish the beaches. You know what I mean by replenish?
Gotcha.
It's
Yes.
always eroding, and then they're
Yes.
dredging things up, and then that screws up the way the waves break.
Mm-hmm.
So it ruins the surfing waves. And but he told me about Towers. So Towers is where we go, and so we go down to Towers. We don't surf because the waves just kind of pop up, destroy you in the face, and then dissipate.
Yes.
And it is intense. Like it's that's why I go. I go there to fight the waves and just get. When adults go to the beach and they sit in their chair,
Yeah.
and they watch the kids play,
Yeah.
I'm like, you want to sit in the sun on the ground for hours? You are weird. Why are you not digging holes, building things, catching mole crabs,
Yes.
skipping stones, and
Yeah.
swimming? What is
Yeah.
wrong with you? Get
Yeah.
in the water.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
mostly with you.
Yeah.
Tim, can I just say, from the very bottom of my heart, I love you so much, and I am so grateful for you. Thank you for joining
Thanks.
us.
Yeah. Thanks for
And
being on the
just
show
and
tonight.
having a very fun conversation. We seldom go over the hour mark.
We are over.
We are over because it was entertaining, at least for me.
And I think this is the first time we've ever had a guest do a pop quiz on us, I believe, right, Joel?
Yes, we're cutting edge here.
Yes, we love it. Thanks.
Flipped the script on.
I
the script
have
on
more
us.
questions, but we'll do it a different time.
All right, perfect.
I love it. I love it.
I mean, there's the question that everyone's been wondering is what is wrong with you? No, no. Thank you so much, guys. And Joel, I appreciate the affectionate, open-hearted way that you have received me into your life so quickly.
Bless you.
Andy, I haven't had as much of an experience of you yet.
You'll get one, I'm sure.
You seem like a good dude.
And there's no higher compliment, as we like to say here, than being called a good dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just think that's
I'd buy a car from that guy.
that's the second highest compliment
right.
you can give right
All
there.
right, we're good then. We're on a good level.
Tim, man, say hi to Carrie, who is your wife, just to be clear. Say hi to Carrie and the kiddos for us. Thanks for the time that you gave us. And as always, guys, you can head over to dudesanddadspodcast.com
for all of our show notes.
Show notes, all the goodies. We'll put Tim's stuff up there. We'll make him embarrassingly easy to find because he's got some good video content, by the way. We didn't even discuss that.
My wife says I'm the best dude.
Andy is the best dude. A little biased. But also you can reach us over at dudesanddadspodcast@gmail.com if you've got some pithy comments you'd like to share with us, some recommendations for future shows, or a strong rebuke in the name of Jesus, whatever